Oh, yeah, thank you. Yeah, turn in your homework. I wouldn't have forgot. Thank you. Don't blame Eric. He's just innocent messenger. Your first name, last name's on there. Well, Joe asked. All right, did I get everybody's? Paige, did you email or did you do it? You got it? Okay, is that it? Is that your whole? You're muted. Why don't you unmute?
Okay, guys.
Okay, is that your whole assignment?
I did the chapter.
I'm not able to. Oh, there we go. Now I could.
Okay. It was a 22 to 25, correct?
Yeah, on those.
Yeah.
Okay, so take a picture of that, and I'll send and turn it in. Email it. All right, so we're going to do a little PowerPoint for starters. Whoops. Amy? There we go. All right, we're in business. Yeah, so this is chapter 12. Yes. All right, so this chapter deals with financial crisis in general. We'll spend a decent amount of time talking about the recent financial crisis, since it's easy to analyze and our most recent one. But there's things that have gone on with all financial crises, and it usually has to do with leverage. What do we mean by leverage? When you're using leverage. Use something against something else. Yeah. Okay. So, and when you say use it against something else, what are you doing? Trying to accomplish. Okay. Okay. So you're using something as a little bit of leverage to accomplish something. Yeah, but I don't use leverage. So, like, if you got some dirt on somebody, you can get more things out of them because you've got some leverage if they don't want it to go public. It's called blackmail. So that's one form of leverage might be blackmail, right? Okay, but that's not the type of leverage I was talking about in investment finance class. But it's similar. In finance, what do we talk about as leverage? It can be, but not really specifically. That's a good one. I mean, information in general is kind of along the blackmail lines, right? Asymmetric information, which is good. We just came out of that chapter. It deals with borrowing.
Borrow like a lower interest rate and then like lend at a higher.
And lend at a higher, yes. So that's the use of leverage. So when a business comes in and says, man, I've got this great idea. We've got the marketing in place. I think this is a due to get enough television commercials together and to get production up to 50 million units so that we bring this to market and put ourselves in Target and Walmart. We're going to need about $100 million, right? And so we think that we're going to project making another $50 million on our $100 million. So we're going to make $50 million worth of profit on a $100 million investment. Of course, it's going to take 2 years to recoup that, right? So in terms of our initial investment, today we're going to be out $100 million, and 1-2 year time frame, we think we're going to be making 25 million the first year, 50 million the second year, and then on from there we could chart out a few, and then we could calculate the internal rate of return on that particular business venture, right? If that particular internal rate of return is 30%, that might be a good deal for us to pursue as a business, right? Getting a 30% return. By the way, on a business deal like that, 30% is kind of where you want to be because there's risk involved, right? This is far from buying bonds and investing in the stock market and mutual funds. We might need a 10% rate of return. If you're putting that much money at, and there's a decent amount of risk, I mean, this might start to be the minimum of what you need is some sort of 30% return. Well, that said, we don't have $100 million today. So, in theory, as long as I borrow money at some rate less than 30%, I can use leverage to make this deal happen. So maybe I've got 20 million of my own money and I need to borrow 80 million. So we probably won't have to go here, but some companies do. I'm not really using an example when I get into the millions, but if this is in the thousands, have you heard of people starting businesses on credit cards? On taking a cash withdrawal off their credit card? People do. People do. So you might have availability of a line of credit or something from a credit card. It might be 0% interest. So Capital One does a lot of business lending like this. So you guys have heard of Capital One, of course, right? So Capital One's just a credit card company, more or less, but they'll extend advances. Might be 0% for the first year. And I think the most I had when I was doing my business dealings was 50 grand. So I could do a 50 grand withdrawal at any point in time with my credit that I had for doing a deal. I just pick up the phone and say, send me a check for 50 grand. And it did come. I did it one time. Yeah, it was about 50 grand. I maxed it out for one deal. Now I was expecting a fairly short turnaround, but the first year's interest was, yeah, like 0 or 2% or something really cheap. They kind of bait you into it. And so a lot of businesses can get started on that. Now, ultimately, where you got to know you're going is that, and they're upfront with this, 0% was the introductory rate, and then it's going to be our normal rate of 16%. Yeah, I think in Capital One, they tended to be down there. But if you default on a payment or something, it's going to ramp up to 30, right? So hopefully your 30% deal came through. Otherwise, you're screwed. But that's possible. So that type of borrowing really does go on in both small business and big business. But more likely, if you're a big, credible business and you have a working relationship with your banker and all of that stuff, you've got a $100 million deal. Again, you've got assets for collateral that you might be able to put up. You might be able to borrow this at 6%. Right? And so that's using leverage to make this deal happen. All right. So as tying this back to the financial crisis, what these swings that we go through is that we'll tend to have a good economy. Rising tide rises all boats, right? So all of a sudden deals start going. Interest rates start climbing, maybe from 6 to 7 to 8%. They start to go up, but the deals look golden everywhere. There's lots of 30% deals and businesses are borrowing and everything's fine. And then we start to have maybe a general downturn. And then we start to get into problems with systematically across the country. Under normal times, there is always some businesses failing and hopefully more succeeding. So as long as the bank is playing a hedging game, they're making out 100 bets of 100 million. They know that X% is the default rate. So they have priced default risk into their 6% loan. So big companies like this, it's probably golden, very low default rate, but that is priced into the interest rate that they put out. But if we start to have systematic defaults on a lot of companies, the bank starts to go under too, right? Because it could handle the amount that they expected, but it can't handle a whole bunch falling down. So we've got stock market. So this is the asset market effects on balance sheets. So stock market starts to fall. The companies, the corporations are falling. Unanticipated decline in the price level. Unanticipated decline in the value of domestic currency. And then asset write-downs, what we thought was worth $50 million worth of equipment. In today's economy, you put it on Craigslist, you'll be lucky to get 50 cents on the dollar. That's a write-down. That plays into loans because part of the bank's willingness to give you 80 million was based on the value of your assets, some of which you might have pledged as collateral. And now if that collateral is no longer worth $100, it's worth $50 because of the general market downturn, you have to pony up some dough to make your loans correct. So this all starts to spiral on itself when it starts to happen economy-wide, leading us into what we call a crisis, where everything's unwinding at the same time. All right, questions or comments on that? All right, let's see, where's my clicker for this thing? All right, let you read through that. What is disintermediation? Disintermediation. What is intermediation? And then we will undo that. What is an intermediary? Intermediation in banking terms, what are we doing? Direct finance, indirect finance? Yeah, we're connecting the borrower to the lender, so we got the middleman in between. So disintermediation means there's less middlemen out there because the banks are starting to hurt. So the amount that's being lent out to new businesses, they got a home run. The bank is hurting enough that it can't make that deal, right? So we've got that unwinding going on that causes a decrease in lending, and we're losing that function of the bank. Okay, so we got interest rates. This one's not immediately obvious, bullet number 2. Increases adverse selection problem. Increases in interest rates. What does that mean? What's adverse selection again? Pre-contract, post-contract? Pre. So before the fact, who are we attracting to our business? So an increase in interest rates that happens during the crisis increases the selection problem. Who are we attracting? That is a problem. Yeah, more riskier borrowers, right? So we're starting to have interest rates go up and still, so high risk, high return. We're going to start maybe attracting the riskier types of investments to the table, and those are the ones we start to engage in. All right, fiscal imbalances. So government, how many times has the U.S. government defaulted on debt? 0. But other governments do. What do you think relates to the government though with the United States? Even though there's a default risk, fiscal imbalances. What sort of imbalances might we have in a general downturn in the economy? Less tax revenue, right? Creating what with the deficit? Increased deficits. So government spending's probably up during a downturn. Tax revenues are down, creating deficits. What does the government have to do when they run a deficit? Increase taxes, but they don't want to do that because we're already in a downturn. So they borrow. Where do they go? They go to the financial markets, just like everybody else. And now we create that substitution between private borrowing for for businesses and for these types of deals, now we have the government competing for money too. So they enter the credit markets and they're looking to borrow to cover their spending for the downturn. All right, so another little tidbit in there. All right, so questions or comments there? Yeah.
I was kind of curious, where's the steps to do to get out of the situation?
Where's the what?
Like, what would the government do to try to get out of
Well,
like make something?
what did the government do, or what
Yeah.
could the government do? All right, well, that's kind of a lot of what we'll talk about this chapter. But I'd say the couple schools of thought would be to hands off. If it's going to fail, let it fail, and it'll rebound, right? And the other school of thought, which is more mainstream of what really happened, is, well, let's use government intervention to help try to prop things up. So we come up with government programs with fiscal policy. We come up with monetary policy that tends to try to prop things up and limp along. So that's kind of what we'll explore more of where we go. So the road that the United States took was to try to prop things up. So we had programs like cash for clunkers that Obama passed. That was a fiscal policy. Bring in your old car. We'll give you cash for your clunker to try to get new sales stimulated. Well, that turned into good used cars that still had productive uses coming into inventory being traded in. Sounds good, but what do we do with the old car now that it's in? We don't want to hurt car prices. We could sell it, but that would tend to hurt used car markets and hurt other people who had used cars that they want to sell. So the government came up with a great idea, similar to what they did in the 70s with corn. Destroy it. So we destroyed a bunch of good cars that still had productive uses with the cash for clunker program. So I just like, those are kind of one of the more fun government waste programs. So the one that was similar, I went over in macro class, but I know not all of you had me for macro, was the corn program for helping farmers back in the 70s. They bought corn to help the farmers because the price floor, and so there was excess corn, so the government's like, oh crap, we didn't know you couldn't sell it if we raised the price above equilibrium. I know, we'll buy it. So they bought the corn at high prices. But of course, they're like, oh crap, we can't sell this stuff now because that will change market prices. We'll be a supplier of corn, and we don't want to do that. So Congress said, well, just put it in a bin and we'll worry about it next year. So they did. And then they said, well, what should we do with the corn? I don't know, let's worry about it next year. What about this year? Oh, let's worry about it next year. And then all the corn rotted in bins. So we had corn being stored that ultimately rotted and went to waste. So it's kind of a similar story with government intervention on the cash clunker and the corn. Okay, so we've got, the author kind of describes this in these stages of bringing us through the financial crisis. So stage one, mismanagement, liberalization, innovation, asset price boom and bust, spikes in interest rates, increased uncertainty. So what is liberalization? Financial liberalization. Does that mean marches on Wall Street and other places by liberals, or what is financial liberalization?
Is that forgiving debt?
Forgiving debt? Is that what you said?
Yeah.
No, it's not actually forgiving debt. Forgiving debt would be kind of letting it wipe away, which is going to be in later phases when we get to bailouts. So we're not there yet. This is actually prior. So this is stage one, is kind of the what's going on. We got a mismanagement of financialization, innovation. So if you're being more liberal with something, let's not get the political context of liberal conservative, but if you're being liberal with something, what are you doing? Give me another word that you could use as a synonym for that. What's that? Sorry, free, being more free with it. Yeah, free or generous, right? So liberally coat mayonnaise on my sandwich. Well, what does that mean? You like a lot of mayonnaise or a little bit of mayonnaise? You want a lot of mayonnaise on it, right? So financial liberalization is being real generous with funds, maybe deregulation of the financial system in different ways. So all kinds of potential, that's a real general word. Yeah, Eric?
Word like banks, just giving out loans to anybody.
Yeah. Yeah, so in the videos that we watched before, the kind of giving out loans to everybody, right? So kind of reducing some of those barriers, maybe through law, but maybe just practices of banks, like the banks are being kind of loosey-goosey with, oh yeah, we used to not lend money to a person like that, but heck, let's take the risk, it's worth it. Just charge them a little higher interest rate, we'll be fine, right? All right, so then we get into the crisis and debt deflation. So this little picture highlights stage 1, 2, and 3. So up top here, we've got deterioration of the financial institution's balance sheets. What would be happening with a financial institution's balance sheet, deteriorating balance sheet? Who's my balance sheet person? Chisholm is smiling because she knows she's a balance sheet person, but she doesn't want to be put under pressure of, what would that be? A weakening balance sheet. You don't even have to think financial balance sheet, but any old company's balance sheet, if it's deteriorating, what's happening? Asset values are starting to go down, right? So assets down, debt's up, liabilities up, whatever. So our net worth is down. So if we think of our owner's equity or net worth, however, lots of different accounting ways to do this. We got assets minus liabilities. We got liabilities maybe going up, assets going down. That's a deteriorating balance sheet, right? Your net wealth or your worth, your owner's equity is falling. Okay, so asset price decline, increased uncertainty, adverse selection and moral hazard problems worsen, and with the lending contracts. All right, then that kind of can feed us into the stage 2. That in and of itself, again, can happen all the time. Like one bank got a little crazy, they could fail, it's not going to take down the banking system. It's not a banking crisis when one bank goes bankrupt, right? It's not a financial crisis when one company goes bankrupt. That happens all the time. So remember, in stage 1, we have that type of thing going on, but now what's different is it rolls into stage 2, where we've got economic activity declining, rolling into banking crisis, worse adverse selection. So things are kind of spiraling in further economic activity. Unanticipated decline in the price level. So now we're getting deflation across the board. More adverse selection, moral hazard problems, contracts, a lot of uncertainty, asymmetric information, all of that problems just starts kind of weaving through the system. Okay, so how does that happen? Let me see where I want to go to today. Yes, we're going to go to there, and then we're going to go to there. All right. So this is the Great Depression. So back to 1929. We've heard some of the story before. Kind of leads off with the stock market crash, but that's almost unfair to think about that first, I think. What was prior? What were the 20s like? The roaring 20s, right? So you've read in your history books since you were in 5th grade. Oh, it was a time of the roaring 20s. We got the flapper girls and people smoking cigars and partying and whatever. So we had that boom going on where there was lots of lending, probably financial liberalization, right? We got lots of loans going out. Stock market crash, bank panics, it all starts to unwind. So here's some data on the post-crash here. So here's the height of the stock market. Remember, it was Black Monday, October 1929. There's the stock market peak and the crash and the subsequent little recoveries and crash, recovery, boom, 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 all the way down to here. And then notice up until World War II, we never even got back to half of where we were. So this was a serious market correction of all market corrections. This was worse than this financial crisis we just went through. Our stock market, anybody remember how long it took to rebound our stock market? Because we just hit all-time high, right? 20,000, we talked about that last time for the Dow Jones. But after 2008 financial crisis, if we look at a similar graph, when did we get back to being there in 2000, after the 2008? Yeah, it was around 2011. It was basically 2 to 3 years later. Notice here, this is 1930. We're 10 years, and we're still not there. And frankly, I can't remember when it actually came back to being over where it was. But it took a long time, so it was a lot worse. Okay, questions or comments there? Okay, so credit spreads. So what is this graph showing? What's a spread in general? I like to think of this about how banks make money. Difference between two things. So in a bank, outside of this graph for a moment, when we think about a bank making money, how do they make money? How do they be profitable? In reference to a spread. Good. So we got deposit money coming in, and we loan it out at a higher rate, right? And then there's a few defaults that we have to take care of and costs of doing business, but that's in general how they make money. So here we've got the spread between BAA. Is that a fairly good bond rating? Pretty good, right? It's not the best bond rating, but it's pretty good. So it's a little bit more down on the risky scale, minus the US Treasury. So that's what the spreads look like and how they jumped up during the 30s and then kind of came back to maybe an equilibrium is somewhere in this 2 to 3 range, but we have that type of jump due to uncertainty.
That's the risk premium?
Yes, yeah, that would be on the risk premium. So we take the US Treasury as risk-free, and then the interest rate, the bond, and these are a little bit more riskier bonds, take the difference between the two, and that's the risk premium. Good. So this is capturing the uncertainty post 1930, how we demanded a really high premium to carry those bonds. Okay. So financial crisis currently. Now, everybody here, I thought, did the crisis video. Is that right? Except Josh, who didn't have money in banking last semester, and Brandon. Okay. Well, that's such a fun video. Maybe we'll play it again. But let's not do it today. We'll save it for maybe Monday, or maybe I'll send it out. I'll decide. But who remembers from that video what a CDO is? What is one of these suckers? It's kind of was one of the main financial instruments that they talked about in that video. Who's got that? Collateralized debt obligation, mortgage-backed securities. Joe?
I think so. Some mortgages to like investment packages, so to investors.
Okay. And then what do they do with it? There was one more step. So you were kind of on this. So subprime mortgages, that was just maybe loaning out some money to losers that had a high chance of defaulting. That's kind of the subprime. But we kind of took comfort is that if we bundled a whole bunch of those losers together with other losers, all of the losers wouldn't default at the same time. So they still had value. There's still some market value, right? So we've got mortgage-backed securities. I'm going to create financial security that has 1,000 mortgages behind it, right? So when you buy one share of the mortgage-backed security, you just bought 1,000 mortgages. right? So that financial security is what was traded. So that's where Joe was there. And then this one. I'll give you a hint. It had the little milk and honey, the little trays kind of dribbling down. There's like a flow, and then it went down, and then it went down. We did something with those mortgage-backed securities. Good. Yeah, we split them into what they call tranches of risk. So we had high risk. This is the way the video did it. So money would flow in. Ooh, I don't know what the heck that is. Excuse me. Hand just got a little crazy there. I'm trying to do a spigot. So we got the 1,000 mortgages of people making their payments, right? And so the first upper tranche was the low risk, probably rated AAA, because all of these were going to get paid first. And then the next tranche would be filled, and then the next tranche. But if the money dried up because people were defaulting, it's possible this one's not going to get filled. This one probably will for sure, but not this one. And so it created these risk levels, and this was kind of the junk bond level or even higher. This was the high risk category. There'd still be some hedge funds and other people that would buy this because they were willing to play the game, but these were fairly risky. These weren't. So these could be carved out and sold to investors looking for very low to no risk. And so it created this collateralized debt obligation. All right. So these innovations were probably could be thrown into that financial liberalization category of having new financial stuff out there to trade. And, you know, economists probably looked at that and said, oh, this is good because we've got efficiency at its best. We're carving out every little last piece of risk and we're squeezing out all the value to allow it to be traded. That drives the markets to be efficient and those prices will reflect efficiency and everything's great. Okay. Well, some of those economists forgot about information flows and how that could clog things up. So we stumbled into these agency problems. Back to moral hazard and adverse selection. So everybody can get a house loan started to attract high-risk borrowers to the plate. And of course, they didn't mind that they had high-risk borrowers because they had the house as collateral. Housing prices are always going up, so they felt fairly safe and could still do this even with high-risk borrowers. But along the way, the deal kept getting passed from one person to the next. So in that video, they show the home buyer working with a real estate agent. And the real estate agent kind of being the go-between with the banker, like the local banker, right? The local banker wants to get that person a loan because the local banker gets a little commission when they get a loan deal, or it's part of their job description. The real estate agent wants the house to get sold because that's how they get paid. The more houses they sell, the more money they make. The banker, the more loans they make, the more money they make. So on the front end, we had this incentive structure to get more and more volume, more and more houses sold. And then once the bank got it, they would bundle it up and sell a mortgage-backed security. Now the bank's off the hook because they sold 1,000 homes bundled together to Wall Street, and they're now off the hook. Somebody else bought the risk. They had to take a little bit of a haircut. So maybe those 1,000 mortgages had $100 million worth of loans in them. If they would nurse them all the way through, they'd get the interest rate, they'd get the $100 million, but they're willing to sell it to Wall Street for $90 million and still make money. So they're done. They sold it at a discount. Wall Street takes it saying, oh, well, it's 1,000 mortgages. Heck, I'll give you $90 million for $100 million worth of mortgages, right? So that seemed like a good deal to them. They took on the risk. Then Wall Street carves these suckers up and starts dumping the safe ones back to other people who were willing to take on risk. And they're like, oh, well, Goldman Sachs is behind it. That's no problem. I'll do it. And so Goldman kind of dumped off that stuff. So everybody's kind of playing this hot potato game, getting out of the way. And that created these agency issues that left asset prices, housing prices growing and growing and growing. The more people that we bring on in terms of a supply and demand model, the price of a house, the quantity of houses, if people can get cheap credit and get into a house, the number of borrowers starts to escalate, right? The demand goes up when housing prices go up. Or I'm sorry, the demand goes up when more people are able to borrow money, and so that causes housing prices to go up. And now everybody starts to, a side effect of this is the people who owned existing houses started to feel pretty good and feel pretty rich. So they decided, I was contributing 15% a month to my savings for my long-term retirement, but shoot, my house has gone up in value from $150,000 to $200,000 in the last 2 years. I'm going to go on that vacation. I'm going to spend a little bit more money. I'm going to quit saving. I'm going to knock my savings rate down from 15% down to 10%, right? So again, that started changing people's behavior, moral hazard, after the price, because of what's going on in the economy with the pricing. It started to change a lot of things going on. And all of this kind of led to housing prices growing. Okay, questions or comments on that? Kind of, if you haven't figured out, kind of walking you through the video, and that's basically what this is straight out of the textbook. That's what they're doing here. Okay, so housing price bust. Eventually we figure out that they can't go any higher. And when we find that we built this on a house of cards, not only was one house too high, but the whole freaking market is too high because of this artificial demand that was built through sometimes fraud, sometimes misrepresentation, sometimes just, oops, you know, some uncertainty that I didn't play right. So housing bubble goes, and we start to see the crisis go all over the globe. There's an old saying that when the United States sneezes, the rest of the world catches a cold. That was an old saying that's still, I think, true today. Certainly happened in this financial crisis. When the United States sneezes, the rest of the world catches a cold, because it's been kind of the world leader, especially in financial markets over time. Eric?
So everybody was digging into this process. Was there people like saying that it's going to pay for this, or like were people against it?
Well, there was a few. So if you watch The Big Short, there was a very few people that thought this thing was a house of cards and that it was going to pop. But in order, so I encourage you to watch The Big Short. If you want to kind of see a person who picked out, that's what the movie's really about, is somebody who saw that it wasn't going to work long term. But in order to do that, he started having to buy some insurance contracts, which is a perfect segue into what I'm getting into next. So, I want to look at credit default swaps today. This should be new material for just about anybody. I don't know, did you guys do this in one of Greg's classes, credit default swaps? Probably not, but maybe, no. Okay. Credit default swaps. This played an important role in the financial crisis, and it plays into the hot potato game that we were talking about. All right, so our story starts off with a pension fund. So remember, there's lots of savings institutions out there that are non-banks, and a pension fund is one of them, where you've got maybe thousands of employees' savings over time, and you've got this big pile of money that you're looking to invest and put it into a place. So one of those places you could put it is into Corporation A. You think that they're pretty good, you like the interest rate, you've been kind of aggressive looking at getting the best return for your pension holders, and the Corporation A, the bond is going to pay 10%, 10% interest per year. And you're going to loan them $1 billion. We're usually talking big denominations with this stuff, by the way. So big corporation, they think that they've got this type of thing going on, right? And so they're willing to pay 10% to maybe chase some venture that they project is going to be a 30% return. Okay, so there's a corporation A is double B rated. So the pension fund, by law, is locked out of buying a bond from corporation A because it's only double B. And they have to be in all just A-rated stuff. So they couldn't do this deal. So then some financial guru had an idea. They could go to an insurance company like AIG. So AIG, that's one of the companies that went under during the financial crisis. But they are an insurance company, AIG Insurance. And they say, hey, I'll write you an insurance policy such that if this guy defaults, I'll cover it. Right? So the insurance policy is a default policy where I'm going to swap the credit with you. That's the credit default swap. My credit's going to be swapped with the corporation A's credit, of course, for a price. So the price is you're going to pay a 1% premium per year. 1% per year of a premium is your insurance premium. These guys, of course, are paying 10%, so you're still going to be up 9, which is still good relative to the other things that you could be doing. And in return, AIG is going to provide an insurance policy on default on A's debt, corporation A's debt. It's just a piece of paper that says, I promise to pay you, pension fund, the debt that they owe you, right, if they default. So AIG is a double A rated company. Since we have a double A rated company insuring a double B rated company, the US government law, the SEC, is fine with the pension fund making this loan because they're going to use the insurance company's rating to effectively rate this deal. Make sense? So AIG is a big company, insurance company, they're loaded, they're a fat cat. As long as they say that they're going to cover this guy, then I'm going to treat this deal as if it's double A rated. So that's part of the swap that's going on. We can have our deal at the insurance company's rating. All right, so Moody's is the one that comes up with this. So the other player in this market is the bond rating agencies. Moody's is just one of them. So Moody's is the private company, not government, by the way. So remember, this is a private company that rates, been doing it for years. They rate these financial securities. So this double A rating and this double B rating. Need to draw 2 lines. I just wanted to get a little color going. Okay, so any questions on that? Now, what is the problem? What's some potential problems that, what is this deal dependent, like this deal might work, 95 times out of 96 times. but there's still a chance it couldn't work. What is it really all kind of resting on? The ratings, yeah. So the ratings are part of it that allow the pension fund to borrow in the first place, and they're changing around their balance sheet depending on what assets and liabilities they have. They all have balance sheets, right? So we've got in the insurance business, we've got the pension fund with seeking loans and running the portfolio type business, and then we got the real corporate doing their business. So they all have stuff going on with this. All right, so this can work for a while, but where could it go wrong? How is this possibly could go wrong, Eric?
One default instead of chain reaction.
Yeah. So if Corporation A defaults, can AIG absorb that? Hopefully, right? They're a big company. They can maybe take that on. But if they do this for a couple other companies, so if we've got another Pension B down here, we've got Pension B doing the same thing with Corporation B, and they've got their own side deal going. And then they're going to AIG, doing the same, I'm just trying to do the same type of transaction. How many of these deals can AIG do? Yeah, you kind of start to wonder. Here was one of the main underlying problems. They didn't have to have any sort of collateral to write these insurance policies. They were just big AIG, who probably could absorb Corporation A failing and paying the default, probably could afford Corporation B doing it, but probably not A, B, C, D, and E all failing at the same time. And because these were fairly new, there was no laws on the books that capped them on how many of these transactions they could make. And so they were basically leveraged out beyond what their capacity was, if all of them would default or large parts would default. They weren't being really monitored in that respect. Now, history taught us that, oh, well, none of these are all going to default at the same time, so who cares? Whoops. That's the problem with using history to forecast things. We have a fairly new financial asset that people are starting to get the understanding. That seems to make perfect logical sense. But what happens if we do have mass defaults and we start to go under? Well, as that starts to happen, the proper thing would be for Moody's to downgrade AIG, which they did. So if they lose their AA and get rated to BB, the pension fund is screwed, because now they don't have the AA rating that they need. And so the pension fund has to start to unwind and sell assets and get down, and maybe cut back pension checks that are going to real people would be the worst of it if they had to get to that point. But there would have to be some unwinding and getting out of these. And so that's how the thing starts to swirl and get into a financial mess when we have enough things in the hopper failing at the same time. All right, we'll pick up there on Wednesday.